I want to ask your father about a mugging incident. Mugging? My father? Yes. Your father is suspected of mugging. Is he at home now? Yes, he is here. Do you want to see him? The police officer looked puzzled for a moment at my tone, but said, "Please let me see him," so I took the police officer into the house and opened the door. My father is here. The police officer was stunned to see my father there. This was a few months ago. My name is James. I'm a fourth-year university student. I've decided to work for a major company, but there's still something I'm undecided about. Whether or not to take over my father's company. My father is the president of a small factory. When I was young, I wanted to take over the factory and become a president like my father, but that feeling disappeared when I entered my rebellious phase. I began to feel embarrassed by my father, who was always covered in oil stains in his work clothes. That feeling remained unchanged even after I became a teenager and even now, somewhere in my heart. After becoming an adult and working part-time jobs, I began to respect my father, who worked hard while supporting many employees and their families. But I couldn't shake the feeling that a salaryman who wears a suit and works hard is cooler than my father. One day, while shopping with my father, we were suddenly called out from behind. James. My father and I turned around together. There was a man of the same age as my father. Jack. Long time no see. This Jack person was apparently a classmate of my father's from high school. Jack, who was wearing a suit, happened to be on an outside sales trip. After revealing that he worked for a famous large company, Jack asked my father, "Did you take over the family business after all?" "Oh yeah, that's right. We're still managing somehow." "That dirty little factory of yours? You've become quite something as its president. And you're only a high school graduate? That's impossible. You really are pathetic." I was shocked by Jack's words. That factory was started by my grandfather and my father is the second generation. I knew he had taken over after graduating from high school, but I never thought there would be a classmate who would make fun of him like that. Jack continued to smile silently at my father. "So, did you make your father's factory bigger? You said you were going to take over the company in high school and make it bigger." "No, unfortunately I didn't have any business sense. That dream didn't come true." "Ha ha ha. You couldn't help it. You're good with your hands but your head isn't very good. But it's good that you didn't go bankrupt. I thought guys like you were going bankrupt." Jack laughed heartily and slapped my father on the shoulder before saying, "I have more work to do, so let's catch up at the next reunion," and leaving. My father, who had been talked down to, looked a little awkward and said, "Shall we go?" before walking off to resume shopping. At that time, I felt that my father's work was something that was being made fun of without any rebuttal from me. The balance between taking over my father's company or continuing to work for a famous large company tilted heavily towards working for the latter. A few weeks later, my father's alumni association was held. By chance, it was held at the bar where I worked part-time. The place was busy with many customers that day, and I didn't have many opportunities to bring food and drinks to the table where my father's alumni association was being held. I thought it was lucky, but I eventually had a chance to go to that table. I felt a little embarrassed about bringing drinks to my father's alumni association, but I kept quiet because it was my job. Our bar has private rooms. When I showed up at the table where my father's alumni association, which was being held in one of the large rooms rented out for the occasion, was taking place, my father, who happened to be near the entrance and exit, said with a smile, "Oh James. Are you his son?" My father asked the woman next to him, who then introduced me as his son. I politely greeted them and arranged the drinks I put on the table. My eyes are just like my father's, and I'm just as serious as he is. My father's drunken classmates teased me, and I laughed awkwardly. Jack, who was sitting at a table a little away from us, noticed us and said, "We met recently too. James. Right? Are you planning to take over your father's small factory?" When I answered honestly, "No, I'm still thinking about it," to Jack's question with an alcoholic breath that made me feel disgusted, he shouted loudly, "Stop it. Your father's company is nothing special. James should work for a company like me instead of taking over such a company. Like me. He then began to brag about his career history, but something seemed off. He said he was in sales when we met before, but now he says he's become the head of accounting. I felt something was wrong but kept quiet because it could be troublesome if I pointed it out. However, my father's mouth became lighter because he was drunk. Has your department changed since we last met? It hasn't been that long since we last met, a few weeks ago. Was it an urgent transfer? Did sales not suit you? Jack's mouth that had been talking so much stopped when he heard my father's words. Jack looked flustered and nodded his head saying, yes. That's right. Sales wasn't for me. As soon as I transferred, I became the head of accounting. That's strange. Didn't that company get absorbed by a foreign company and have its accounting department based overseas? As my father pointed out, the company Jack boasted about had been absorbed by a foreign company. Many people had noticed this but didn't point it out until my father did so. There was a burst of laughter at my father's remark. Hey Jack. What's going on? Are you really the head of accounting even though you were absorbed by another company? Shut up. Can't you see I'm at this party? Jack, who had been laughed at, trembled with regret and said, I'll go home, before leaving with heavy footsteps. The people around him told my father that he hadn't done anything wrong, so Jack must have always been like that. Seeing my father being praised for what he said rather than being laughed at made me happy. Even though he was drunk, my father looked cool when he said what everyone else found hard to say. Half a year has passed since then. I still spend days wondering whether or not to take over my father's company. My confusion has only deepened day by day and honestly don't know what to do. One day while relaxing at home, the intercom rang. Since my mother wasn't there, I went to the entrance. Yes. Hello. You're James? The visitor said so in uniformed clothes. I replied with a stiff voice, yes. Surprised and wondering if I had done something wrong or not when the police officer said, regarding the purse snatching incident, there's something I want to ask your father. Purse snatching? My father? Yes. Your father is suspected of purse snatching. Is your father at home now? Yes, he's here, but do you want to see him? The police officer looked puzzled for a moment at my tone, but said, please let me see him, so I let the police officer into my house and opened the door to the room. My father is here. There was a Buddhist altar and a photograph of my father. I told the police officer that my father had passed away in a traffic accident, which made him freeze in shock. I'm sorry for your loss, said the police officer. I asked him. My father is not the kind of person who would snatch purses. Who suspects my father of being a purse snatcher? I can't tell you that because it's personal information. I'm sorry for bothering you today. After apologizing to me several times, the police officer left. I was confused about who had accused my father of purse snatching, but I soon found out. A few days later, I was working at my father's factory to fill the void left by his absence. My mother is now taking over for my father, but she is already in her 50s and can only help with his work a little bit. To fill my father's void, I was helping out at the factory when Jack came barging in. Take me to your father. Return what he stole. The factory was making quite a bit of noise from its large machines, but Jack shouted with a voice that could not be drowned out by such noise. I was surprised by Jack's voice, but I wasn't the only one. As other employees stopped working and were surprised, I spoke to Jack. My father isn't here. Then at home? Call him out right away. I'm having trouble because your father snatched something from me. I heard a voice from one of the employees saying, purse snatching? Is it our president? But Jack crossed his arms and refused to budge. He kept shouting, give me your father. In response, I asked him. My father is not the kind of person who would snatch purses. Are you sure you're not mistaken? No, it was definitely your father. He must have been jealous of me working for a big company and snatched my bag. Fortunately, I didn't have my wallet or anything with me at that time, but it's unforgivable that he snatched something in the first place. The police are useless, so I came here myself to talk to him. When did this happen exactly? That was, about 2 weeks ago. When Jack answered decisively after hesitating for a moment, the employees began to stir. I guess they were confused by the commotion. When I asked Jack again if it was really 2 weeks ago, he got angry with me for being persistent. He started shouting loudly. "What's going on? You keep asking me over and over again. I said it was 2 weeks ago. An elite like me came all the way to this small and smelly factory just for this. Hurry up and let me talk to your father." I felt my chest getting hot as Jack made a fuss. It wasn't just that he made disparaging remarks about my father's workplace or his colleagues' work. What bothered me most was that he was trying to pin the blame for purse snatching on my father. My father passed away in a traffic accident 1 month ago and cannot be here. When I told him clearly, Jack looked like he had swallowed a pigeon whole and said, "Huh?" I continued. "How could my father snatch purses when he passed away 1 month ago? Maybe there wasn't even any purse snatching at all." I knew that Jack was lying because I found out at our recent class reunion that he had always been a liar since his school days. Furthermore, it turned out that Jack had been jealous of my father since their school days because the girl he liked had liked my father instead. He had always harbored unnecessary rivalry against my father because of such petty jealousy. I couldn't forgive Jack for trying to pin an unfounded accusation on my deceased father just because of such petty jealousy. So then he snatched purses just before he died? As Jack continued to insist on his claim, someone else started shouting from another direction. "Your president wouldn't do something like that. Our president is someone who dresses seriously and walks around like an honest person." Sure. The reason why we are always short-handed is that the president teaches technology and encourages independence. He was a good person who always thought about the staff and business partners without thinking about profits. As Jack trembled, voices praising his father rose one after another. I was honestly moved. I felt ashamed of myself for thinking that my father's work was embarrassing. My father was a president who was respected by his staff and loved enough to be protected even in such a situation. Jack's eyes were filled with tears as he heard the voices of the factory workers defending my father. I delivered the final blow. "The fact that you tried to frame my father for a lie. I will definitely consult with the police." With that, Jack raised his voice and fled from the factory. Afterwards, I went to the police as promised to report that my father had been falsely accused by Jack. The evidence was a recording of Jack's statement made by one of the staff members who had been thoughtful enough to record the argument at that time. Thanks to this, there was evidence left. The police acted quickly because there was evidence, and Jack was caught in no time. Jack's lie about accusing someone of a crime became his own crime, and he ended up in jail for a while. He had insulted my father while he was alive and tried to frame him even after he died. I felt relieved that he got what he deserved. A few days later, someone claiming to be Jack's wife came to our house with a gift box to apologize to me and my mother. When I asked if it was because of what happened at the reunion that Jack had framed my father, Jack's wife sighed and told me, "Yes, that's right. It seems that he was hurt at the reunion." Actually, Jack was an elite who had been fired from his company. He had been looking for a job but it didn't go well, and that's when he met me and my father. Jack, who was obsessed with being an elite, lied, but when he got drunk, he told inconsistent lies and ended up embarrassing himself. He began to resent my father and decided to frame him. I was disgusted by his ridiculous reason for lying, but it seemed that Jack's wife felt the same way. She told me that she intended to divorce him. Jack apparently had no children, so even if he got out of jail, no one would be waiting for him. After graduating from college, I decided to take over my father's company. One reason was because I was worried about the management of the company since my father had just passed away. Another reason was because I couldn't forget the voices of the staff members who had protected my father when Jack lied about him. I wanted to become a president who is loved and respected by staff members like them. That incident became a turning point for me. Since I belonged to the Faculty of Business Administration, I could manage the part of management that my father wasn't good at, but I had to learn from staff members about technology. The staff members taught me many things saying, if it's for your son, and they also told me many stories about my father. Every time they did so, I realized how great my father was. Dad, you were really cool. I'm ashamed that I didn't realize it while you were alive. I'm really sorry. I spoke to his portrait. After work, I'm covered in oil stains. It's embarrassing now that I used to think this is uncool. This dirt is proof of how hard my father worked. I'll do my best to become a president like you. And I'll definitely make your dream come true. I spoke to his portrait again and felt like my father smiled. I'm going to work hard from now on to become a president like him. I want to fulfill my father's dream of expanding the town factory that has been passed down since my grandfather's generation.